Hey everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad Gustafson and I share two books that we love and we think you should read when, Brad.
Right now, people. Jen, I love the energy. You startled me into action here. Now I'm even more ready to go than I was. That was good.
Woohoo! Well, harness that and let us have it. What you been reading this week?
All right. This is fascinating here. And sorry, I don't remember if you talked about this book before. It was published in 2019, but it's new to me. We just got it as a gift in our household. And I made the mistake, Jen, of just checking out reviews before I read it. And the reviews, there's like 87,000 reviews.
Yeah.
A lot of people have read this book since in the 2 to 3 years it's been published. And I don't know why, but I read a couple. I wanted to also read not just how gushing they all were and that everyone loved it, but I was just curious what holes people were poking in it. And there were a few people who were looking for like more substance on some of the pages. So I have to admit, I was reading it like starting from a lens of skepticism, which, it is what it is. But I fell in love with it. I'm like, I'm going to share this book because I love it.
Yay!
Okay. And it reminds me also a little bit of baseball. Well, not baseball is not the right sport, but not every page is a home run.
Right.
But if it were a baseball player, it'd be like in the Hall of Fame, batting like 800. Okay. So I think this was great. The book is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse.
Yes.
And like, when I read a book, it's a graphic, I think they call it like a graphic literary novel. It had pages that spoke to me and that I need in this moment right now. And I think other people might find some pages that they like and that they need. Like, for example, being kind to yourself is one of the greatest kindnesses, said the Mole. And that's something that's a good reminder for myself, but it's also something I'm communicating to kids sometimes and to my own kids at home. So it felt personal and meaningful to me. And then I don't think the author takes, the author is Charlie Mackesy. I don't think they take themselves too seriously, because then there are other pages. Like, I don't think they're trying to be something they're not. They're kind of whimsical and witty and like, is this the moon? Asked the boy. That's a teacup stain, said the Mole. Right? And where there's tea, there's cake. So I don't think it's all intended to be deep quotes. It's this dialogue that really, really, really spoke to me. So I'm sorry for letting that skepticism seep in. I just wanted to be honest, like authentically honest in sharing this, that I'm aware that some people, this maybe didn't do everything they wanted, but there are probably like 80,000 plus people that it did do something really great for them. And I would call myself in that group of people. I did want to share one or two other pages just because they are fun and spoke to me. My markers got a little disheveled here, Jen.
No worries.
I'm gonna pause here. Yeah.
While you're looking for your pages, one of the things that I found so interesting about that book, I think there's probably a term for it, Brad, but I don't know what it is. It's that the author, at the time I remember reading that the author said, while they wanted to create a story that start at the beginning, like it had a story arc for the whole book, that they also wanted to create a book where every page was its own individual story. So you could open up any page of the book and read that and get a story from that page alone. So I found that fascinating as I was reading it. I don't know if you picked up or had heard that either, but I thought that book was fascinating in that way.
Yeah, and I did read, so the introduction to the book, it alludes, I don't think it says that word for word, but it alludes to that you could open it anywhere. I'm always a little skeptical when books say that. I don't know why I am, because it doesn't always work out that way. But this book, it actually could, and it does work out. You really could open to any page and pick it up, and I think it could be meaningful. Although there's always part of me like, what did I miss? The fear of missing out thing, and then you can't really do that. Here's a page that I wanted to share. And again, this is just an example of what something I thought was really meaningful. And there are lots of these, I'm only sharing one or two that resonate, but it's, sometimes I want to say I love you, said the Mole, but I find it difficult. Do you? Said the boy. Yes. So I say something like, I'm glad you're all here. Okay, said the boy. And then the Mole goes and says, I'm glad you're all here. We're glad you're here too. So really, basically inferencing that means the mole was trying to say, I love you, right?
Yeah,
I found
yeah.
that meaningful, Jen, because aside from my direct family, there are people I love. There are human beings that I just genuinely love. And every once in a while, I'll have a friend say that to me, like a guy friend, and I care about them and I love
Yeah,
them, but it's always just weird for me. I appreciate they say it, but I stumble over it, and
yeah.
I could see myself like the mole saying, "I'm glad you're here," but in my heart, I mean, I love you, you know.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
I'm getting really sappy and into the weird weeds here. My whole point is, I really think you should read this now. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it.
Yay. I
Yeah.
don't think I talked about that book on Read This Now. I don't remember doing it. Maybe I did, but I found it fascinating. And it's one of those books that you and I have talked about this before. Like I read a lot of books, but I don't keep most of them. Most of them I end up giving away. Like the collection of books that I have that I've kept, for years and years is pretty small. And while I did end up giving that book away, I kept it for a long time because I kept wanting to revisit it.
Yep.
So I know exactly what you mean. It reminded me a little bit of The Little Prince, which of course is a classic and that resonated with a lot of people. And then also, I think there's something unique in the style, the hand lettering of it. All the letters are painted,
Mhm.
all of that. It's a neat book. It's a neat little book. I'm
Mhm.
glad you shared it.
Yeah, one last thing on the script because you mentioned it. So some of the pages I actually appreciated. It was a little harder to read,
Sure.
but that actually slowed me down instead of skimming. It
Yeah.
really had me. It just felt more personal. So it actually
Yeah.
worked really well. So
I read a book last year that is one that I haven't shared here, but that was really resonated with me. It's a graphic novel called I Never Promised You a Rose Garden by Manny Murphy. And it was hand lettered like that too, where the letters were hand painted. The whole book was watercolor and all the letters were done that way as well. And just exactly what you said, I found myself slowing down reading it. And also, I appreciated the lettering as part of the artwork, which I thought was pretty neat.
yeah,
I don't see a lot of books like that. So I thought that was a pretty neat thing.
cool. Thank you, Jen. What do you got for us
Awesome.
today?
Okay, well, so I'm going to really kind of switch gears today. The book I wanted to share is called The Troubled Girls of Dragomir Academy by Anne Ursu. I want to show this gorgeous cover because I love the way the light out of those windows is shining. I don't know. I just really liked this
It's
color. This
incredible.
cover, yeah, it spoke to me a lot. But this book takes place in a fictional world called Illyria, where every boy has the potential to be a sorcerer, which is a rare and important gift because Illyria is under attack from a strange, like a very mysterious and terrifying enemy known as the Dread. And so Illyria needs sorcerers to be able to fight off this threat, right? But that leaves girls, on the other hand, with having only one task. Since they can't be sorcerers, their only job is really to stay invisible, to just sort of stay out of the way and be in service to the sorcerers, because the sorcerers are the most important people in Illyria. Okay. The story centers around one family who is getting ready to have their son tested to be a sorcerer. And it really, the main character of the book is his sister, Maria. Maria has spent her entire life preparing for her brother Luca's test, his evaluation for sorcery. And by preparing, I mean that she's been jealous, that she's been grumpy, that she has wished that someone would pay attention to her, that she would be treated fairly, much to the chagrin of Luca and to her parents, who just want her to be a good and well-behaved girl, which means to stay out of trouble and stay out of sight, right? So on the day that the sorcerers are finally set to arrive at their home to test Luca, Maria is determined to be the kind of daughter and sister that her family wants. She's determined to stay out of trouble. But naturally, of course, a series of sort of comedic and tragic mishaps on the day lead to all sorts of trouble that like plunge Maria into the spotlight. And that end up costing Luca his chance to be evaluated as a sorcerer. But that's really just where the trouble begins, because just when Maria thinks life can't get any worse, the next day, a letter arrives addressed to her parents, which says that she has been selected for admittance in an academy for troubled girls, girls who can't stay out of trouble, who can't stay invisible, who can't do as they're told. And Maria's parents, who have had it up to here with Maria, who don't know how and frankly don't want to deal with a girl who just can't be invisible, send her away. When she gets there, she finds, through getting to know the other girls who have all been sent away from their families because they are unruly, and by watching and observing the staff at the Dragomir Academy, she starts to wonder if, A, everything they've ever been told about the dread and why it's so important for Illyria to have sorcerers might not really be true. And if the real threat to Illyria isn't perhaps girls like these who don't seem to know what their place is and who refuse to be invisible. So that's really where the story begins. It's a middle grade, like I could recommend this to 5th grade up, fantasy novel with lots of magic, but also lots of pages that would cause people to think about things like gender roles and power structures. It's called The Troubled Girls of Dragomir Academy by Ursu, and I think you should read it right now.
Jen, you've got me hook, line, and sinker. It was the book talk. It was the cover. Like I'm ready to read that thing right now. I'm ready to follow the advice of this show.
Read it now. So good. So if our 3.5 viewers would like to review some of the other books we have challenged them to read right now, where can they go, Brad?
They should definitely go to bit.ly/read_this_now for all the books.
Woo-hoo!
Almost all the books.
That's right. I love it. I love it. Thank you, my friend. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Happy
Jen.
reading.